Hi, Ken. Congratulations on your documentary, Treasure of the Rice Terraces. Can you tell us what inspired you to do this?
Thank First of all, thank you so much for having me. What inspired me to make this documentary? Fun fact, in 2016, I had a recurring dream about an old lady in the mountain province, and that's what kind of triggered my interest in tattoos in general. And in 2019, I co-created and co-produced a short documentary about the revival of indigenous tattoo cultures here in Canada. So during that time, when I saw our director and my co-producing partner receive tattoo gifts from indigenous tattoo artists here in Canada, I kind of felt a little jealous. Um, which prompted the digging and more research on the tattoo practice and culture in the Philippines. So yeah, those two experiences were definitely the influences as to how I got to this point in pursuing the subject matter.
What were the challenges you encountered in doing this documentary?
Challenges. In 2020 po, we went to the Philippines to conduct research, and it's our first stage of development. And when we got there, we actually traveled all the way to Buscalan. And when we got to the central park before you go up the village, we found out that the village was already on lockdown.
Oh.
So when we got there, we the first time we weren't able to meet Apo Wangod. But fortunately, as part of my research, I recognized this one person on a motorcycle. And I was like, I kind of know you. Like, you're one of the apprentices of Apo Wangod. And she was like, yeah, I am one of them. But unfortunately, I'm off to school, but I can bring you to someone who can give you a tattoo. So I was able to get my first batok tattoo from one of her apprentices, Lisa Panoy at that time, which was
Oh,
this one
wow.
here. Yeah. And yeah, and then after that, we kind of waited for COVID to slow down because travel was not allowed, and our subject matter is also high risk, so we didn't
Mhm,
really want to risk going to the village and then carry COVID into the village.
mhm, mhm.
So we kind of waited a little bit, but that was the biggest challenge.
So, how was your meeting with the 106-year-old indigenous tattoo artist, Apo Wang Od?
It was surreal. It was really special. Um, the first time I met her this year, back in January, I kind of teared up
Mm.
because it felt like my my mission was partially complete. Just meeting her was amazing. My cinematographer John Fleming, after I met Wang Od the first time, I turned around and my cinematographer was just ready to hug me, and he's like, I know what you're feeling. Just let it out. So it was really magical. And on top of that, just doing the interview with her was magical because I was learning things and perspectives, especially specific to the Philippine tattoo culture, that I wasn't really aware of growing up in the Philippines.
Mhm. So, how is she as a person now that you've met her? Tell me more about her because I haven't
Yeah,
met her too.
as a person, she's very lovely. You can see the personality shine through the character herself. She likes to joke around. She's very funny. She kind of teases me and my team with some of the local apprentices as well, who became our friends in the village. So she was like kind of pairing us up with her grandnieces, and she's like, oh, you should get to know this person, get to know this person. So it was really, really lovely. But other than being funny, and she was also very insightful. She was sharing stories of how she learned to become a tattoo artist the first time, and she also really took pride on how she kind of took the tattoo practice and use that tattoo practice to teach the rest of the community as to how special the culture is. And that's why it's no longer a dying culture, because now there are a lot more tattoo artists in the village who are doing the practice.
Can you give me an idea of how many students she had or apprentices?
She started with two. So
Mhm,
that's Grace Palikas and El Wigan.
mhm,
And when other women in the village kind of noticed what Apple was doing with Grace and El uh, they kind of wanted to learn what Grace and El learned. So right now in the village, there's three men tattoo artists, and there's over 100 female tattoo artists in the village.
mhm. And did you also get a tattoo from her?
Yes. So here we go. I'm gonna pull my sleeve up a little bit. So this is gonna be part of the documentary. So you're gonna see my arm fully
Yeah.
empty to then a completed arm
Oh,
sleeve
wow.
that we will be completing along the process. This is from
Mhm,
Apawang.
uh-huh.
It's the three dots. So
Well, what's
it's
the
her
significance
signature.
of this?
She no longer tattoos. So the three dots represent Apo, Grace, and Elyang. So they are the three dots of Buscalan village, who was really in the forefront when the tattoo hunter Lars Krutak founded them back in 2006. Um, so yeah, I got this from Apo. This is from Grace. This is from Kuya Mayo, who is one of the tattoo artists here in Vancouver, who was blessed by Apo Wangod to teach and practice the traditional way of tattooing. This is from Katribo Tattoo, El Young, the sides of this compass. This is from Lisa. This is from Beng Beng Bumangil, Mermaid Palangdao, and this is from Love Bumangil. So just a few of the tattoo artists in the village. Really happy that I got one from Apple herself, from Grace and El Young. And I'm really hoping that when we go back for the remaining shoot blocks that we have for the film, is I will be able to complete some of the unfinished tats. So this is gonna be all over around my arm. This is gonna be around my arm. And other tattoo artists are welcome to fill up this arm of mine. And
Wow.
I'm really happy um, that I get to document it, not just for the documentary, but also for my personal treasure chest,
Yeah.
if you may.
How far how far have you gone on the documentary? I know it's still in post-production or something.
Yeah, so we started editing the documentary. What was crazy was when we got to the Philippines and did more research, we met Professor Eakin, who was also one of the tattoo anthropologists who was really into telling the tattoo culture in the mountain province. A lot more stories came out of our visit back in January, so we felt the need to go back to make a solid coverage of the tattoo practice. If I have to give a number, we have 30 to 40% of the film. We're looking to finish the rest later this year, and hopefully by 2024, we can premiere the film. And we promised the Buscalan village community that the very first screening of the film will have to be in Buscalan.
Wow, that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
talk about your collaboration with Patty Lupus of Triangle of Sandes and Bianca Balbuena of Singing in Graveyards.
Yeah, so when we started this project, I really wanted to kind of bridge the Philippines and the Canada through the stories I tell. And when I was still conceptualizing this, Patty and Bianca decided to come on board as co-producers of the project because their company is based in the Philippines. So Patty and Bianca have really, shared their insights, how we can get access to some film incentives or some film financing in the Philippines, and marrying that information with the rest of our financing plan here in Canada.
Mhm. And this is kind of a international collaboration. You have different cinematographers who are foreigners. So, talk about that.
Yeah, so this feature documentary is shot by John Fleming. He's a really good friend of mine. We kind of started the director cinematographer partnership when I was just starting out as a director. He shot my very first documentary called Kalinga. It's a short documentary about Filipino caregivers and nannies, and now it's available to watch on Crave here in Canada. And yeah, and I really appreciate the relationship that we've kind of built through the years, and working on Treasure of the Rice Terraces as our debut feature together is something that's really exciting, because we kind of grown as filmmakers. Our understanding of film, our approach, and also the sensitivity of the subject matter. It's much easier to communicate it with someone who understands the intention behind the project. So I'm just really grateful that I get to work with John, and also my producers, Jacob Crawford and Bailey Wood,
Mm.
who are pushing to get our teaser out there, work with our publicist as well, Cynthia Amsden. And it's been great, and I have nothing but gratefulness for the rest of my team.
And talk about tattoos that are being used now for political statements and the stigmatization before of having a tattoo.
Mhm. Yeah, so growing up, tattoos was kind of a sensitive topic back home. I remember my uncle used to have a dolphin tattoo on his leg, and my grandma asking him to take it out, because at that time, my uncle was planning to move to Canada, and also looking into trying different, jobs and any other opportunities. But it seemed like having that single tattoo have always been an issue. So I just hope that perception changes, especially, with Apo Wangod and the rest of Buscalan is getting recognized, just not just domestically, but also internationally. There are still some parts of the Philippines that still view tattoos as taboo. We've seen and we've heard politicians talk about it as well, and how certain jobs won't necessarily hire people who have tattoos. So that's the kind of conversation that we're really trying to bring up in this documentary. As for tattoos explored as in the political act, we are it feels that we are in the brink of getting colonized again by China, especially, with the past administration and the current administration really exploring options on how to incorporate Chinese companies and China's culture within the Philippines. I really want to take this opportunity to make this documentary and hopefully inspire my fellow Filipino Canadians, Filipino Americans, or Filipinos themselves to really look into how rich our culture is as Filipinos, and what is our role to preserve these, the richness of our culture. Because growing up in the Philippines, it also, showed me how us Filipinos kind of patronized Western culture. And sometimes it's a lot cooler to do Western things than our own culture. So I'm just really hoping that making this documentary will allow conversations to, allow us to have conversations in preserving culture, and also finally practice what we all know growing up, which is tangkilikin ang sariling atin.
Yeah.
Really be the champion of our own culture, because we also don't want to, we don't want our culture to be erased, not just in history, but also in the present time.
Mhm. So when did your interest to become a filmmaker arise? Where did you study filmmaking?
I went to university in the University of the Philippines. I studied communication and media studies. I was exposed to advertising, broadcasting, and journalism during my uni years. But from there, when I moved to Canada for good, I knew that I had to go back and have at least a foundation, like in terms of community and also knowledge when it comes to filmmaking. So I went to Vancouver Film School, where I specialized producing and cinematography. And from there, I started my company right away after graduation as a sole proprietor, and just kept making content under the banner of Amer Films, which is my company. And from there in 2018, I had the privilege to work with a Philippine team with a Filipino feature film called First Love, directed by Paul Soriano and starring Bea Alonzo and Aga Mulak here in Vancouver. So from there, I was kind of in a path where I'm still looking for what really is my purpose as a filmmaker. And because of those experiences, and then me championing more Filipino narratives and stories within diaspora, I was able to find my spot as a director and really just focus on telling authentic Filipino stories to be portrayed, whether it's in the indie side of things or commercial.
And you're right now in your office in Amar Studios?
I'm actually in my home office.
Ah,
Home office. I work from home right now. And yeah, really, I work with the Crawford Filmworks team now. They're based in Port Moody, so sometimes I go there
mm,
during the week.
okay. Can you tell us more about your Filipino roots, like where your parents came from, and how many siblings you have, and how
Yeah,
when did you come to Canada?
I have. Are we including halfies? I have all in all, I have seven other siblings. I am second. I'm the second child out of seven. Um, my family is from Calibo, Aklan in the Philippines. That's where I grew up with my grandmother, and then I moved to Canada for good with the help of my dad and my stepmom in 2015. I moved to Ottawa, and then from Ottawa I moved to Vancouver, and we're still here.
Mm. How often do you go back to the Philippines, and what do you enjoy doing there most?
Um, right now, because of this film, it's been, I think I'm gonna be going home more often than usual. Before I went home, before I went home for the first time, it took about 5 years, for me to visit. And now that we have this opportunity to kind of come back, much more often than before, um, I like to spend more time with family, but still doing work. I really I love Boracay. I was born and raised close to Boracay, so I really love spending time close to the water. Our country is rich with uh, white sand beach and crystal clear water. So yeah, and then just catching up with friends. Nothing too special. But really taking my time in terms of exploring our culture other than the tattoos. Like when I came back, we went to San Pablo, Laguna to pay a visit at the Villa Escudero to see performances of Philippine folk dances. We've also checked out Pina weaving studios in Calibo, where my grandma lives. We were able to watch Battle of the Bands that are happening in local barangays, um, and so many more. Like we really took our time, and really also just introduced myself to some parts of the Philippines that I haven't been to, and I was able to check out some amazing churches as well. And these churches are also rich in culture, especially in Manila. We all know Intramuros, the walled city. So also got the chance to visit those places.
Who are your film influences?
Film influences. This is really exciting that you're asking this question. But I'm a huge fan of direct Eric Mati, especially when he made On the Job and then followed it up with Bye Bust. So as a Filipino director, really love his work. I love that he challenges political conversations through the stories he tell. And I also like Hollywood directors like Damien Chazelle, that's more focused on the music and the the entertainment industry stories that he creates. There's also Denis Villeneuve, a Canadian filmmaker who made Dune. He made Blade Runner 2049 with Prisoners, Sicario. So all these filmmakers are really great inspirations. I've like for Damien Chazelle, for example, like I've been watching his first film, which was Whiplash, the short film, and then made it a feature. So I'm planning to do the same, but with Philippine folk dance next after Treasure. Yeah, and I'm just happy that film allows me to kind of take inspirations from different filmmakers and kind of combine those inspirations and make it my own as a director.
Yeah. So it's from extreme political to music.
Yes. Like I have a really
Wide.
crazy, I guess, strong background on the creative side. Like I used to be a singer, I used to be a dancer, I've done theater. And on top of that, like I went to school for journalism, so I kind of know how to craft a good story, and marrying those and really putting in a strong subtext in all of the films I create that challenges the audience perspective on certain things, I think allows me to become the filmmaker I want to be. Like I'm not just any other filmmaker, I'm the type of filmmaker who champions certain voices to create change and impact in this industry.
Mhm. I know you have two projects, the 4-4 and the documentary Canadian Adobo. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so I'm in prep for both of those films as I am in post for Treasure. Canadian Adobo is a spin-off of my first short documentary called Kalinga. So when I did Kalinga, it was about Filipino caregivers and nannies and how their stories helped me understand what my mom had to go through when she left me at a young age to become a caregiver. And Canadian Adobo is a spin-off of that. So now I want to tell stories of the kids of Filipino caregivers and nannies and really talk about what their experiences were when their parents left them, and really allow them to have that closure with their parents as well, to finally open up and talk about these sensitive topics, because open discussion or a confrontation is not really a thing in the Filipino culture. We kind of keep it to ourselves, and with Filipino caregivers and nannies, they kind of keep those bad experiences they've had to themselves because they don't want to share that burden to their kids. But because they didn't share that burden to their kids kind of villainize them a little bit. So I just want to have that laid out in Canadian Adobo and really show that there is hope when it comes to family reunification, even if certain things haven't been addressed in the past. 4-4, on the other hand, is a film about a Filipino fast food worker who is also a hip hop dancer and is trying to find his place in Canada as a new immigrant. And in an attempt to find his community, he auditions for a cutthroat Philippine folk dance troupe. So it's a little bit of the intensity of Whiplash meets the visual and psychological treatment of Black Swan, but with Philippine folk dance featuring tinikling.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
So this Kalinga is actually the Ink Runs Deep. Is that the same documentary or is it two different documentaries?
That's two different documentaries.
Uh-huh. Can you tell us
Yeah.
more about?
Yeah, so Kalinga was the short doc on caregivers and nannies, while this Ink Runs Deep is about the revival of indigenous tattoo cultures here in Canada. So we interviewed tattoo artists from different nations here in Canada, and really talk about the current, this was 2019. So during that time, there was a huge hype on revival of indigenous tattoo practices and cultures here in Canada. So we interviewed Inuit tattoo artists, Haida tattoo artists, and Glukmuk tattoo artists.
So what are your dream projects? Do you still have dream projects?
Yes, I do have a dream project. I'm in the early stages with a few of them. I'm also currently in talks with I can't drop the name yet, but an A-list actor in the Philippines to develop some of them. I currently have an untitled troll movie that explores the online trolling and the rise of troll farms during the uh, last Philippine elections. And what does that look like if, you know, an online troll is here in Canada, and when he gets traced, his family gets in trouble in the Philippines. So really showing that. So now I'm going into like the Eric Mati kind of style, which is, you know, the approach is more neo-noir. And I have a comedy film also in the works about overworked caregivers plan to perform a bank heist in small town BC. Yeah.
They're all interesting to me.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what would you advise aspiring Filipino filmmakers who also would like to make a name for themselves in Hollywood?
Um, I guess my biggest advice is just really write what you know first. Don't worry about your metrics. You don't have to worry about your market research. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to story first. And if people are interested when it comes to the stories you tell, everything will fall into place. Just really trust the process, develop as much as you can. The longer time in development, the stronger your project becomes. Don't rush certain things. And if you get no's from other people or executives, take that no as an inspiration. And I'm sure after all the there's always the saying in the industry that if you get 10 no's, you at least get one yes. So just keep pushing and try your best to really speak your truth through the film that you create, and then find your purpose in the industry. Because my purpose didn't come until 2019, and I've been in the industry at that time for 3 years already. And once you find your purpose, like the stories would just come out, because you always go back to that purpose if you're still serving that purpose when you make a certain film.
That's very nice. Can you verbalize your purpose?
My purpose is to bridge Philippines and Canada through the stories I tell. So whether it's through short films, documentaries, feature fiction films, or music videos, from now on, people should expect a strong portrayal of authentic stories, not only here in Canada, but hopefully the rest of North America.
Very good. Thank you very much for having this interview and joining us, and looking forward to meeting you in person one of these days.
Yes, thank you so much, and I hope to see you as well in person.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you.